Hey everyone, this is Tucker. Let's talk weather. In today's forecast, we're previewing the entire month of March. Everything from spring-like warmth to Arctic cold, the potential for late season snowfall, and the growing potential for severe weather in this volatile month. March is one of our craziest months of weather, and one of my favorites as a meteorologist because it brings so much change. Now, we can't forecast every individual day, but what we can do is get a look at the big picture and talk about what is most likely to happen as we go through the month. And that takes us here to our big picture, as I was talking about. And what you're looking at are the air masses, the blue and orange colors indicating where you have a cold air mass and a warm air mass, at least relative to the normal. And as we move this forward, you're going to see a shift as we go from late February into early March. This is just taking us through the first 10 days, but a couple features stand out to me. We have this ridge near Alaska, and when you have warmer air out there, it spills colder Arctic air into the United States, and I do expect we're going to start off cold across the eastern U.S. as a result. Meanwhile, we had the ridge to the south, and that may keep things more mild in the southern U.S. where there could be an early spring. We can refer to another weather model that'll take us farther through the month now too, and you see the same thing, that milder air near Alaska and that colder air at least in the eastern U.S., especially the northeast, through the first 10 days of the month, the first third. As we get into the middle of the month, though, we're going to begin to see the pattern evolve, and with that, this Arctic air will start to retreat back north, and this ridge to the south will begin to take over. So this means the south will warm even quicker in the middle of the month, while the north will also warm, but it will take some time for that colder air to move out. As we get later into the month, especially towards the end, you can see we have this ridge really taking over across the southern and eastern U.S., and that's going to be the pattern that I believe is most likely to evolve as we head into the end of March, and we may end up with a very mild United States as a whole as we go through the last few days into April as well. The only exception will be the Northwest, where I do expect it's going to stay quite stormy and cooler than average. But we can also use this data to take a look at what's most likely at the ground, including chances for snow, warm or cold weather, and severe storms. Let's dive into that now. Here we can take a look closer to the ground, and what you're going to see are those orange colors turn to blue, especially across the northern U.S. through that first third of March, as I was talking about. That cold air does get the northern tier, but as we move later into the month, you're going to see milder temperatures start to replace that relative to our average, and as we get even later into March, you're going to see again that pretty much the entire U.S. will be warmer than average, with the exception of the Northwest, where it stays a bit stormier. We can also use this to get an idea of where rain is most likely and where it may be drier. And as we transition to the beginning of our March month, you'll see that the northern U.S. and the East Coast is likely to be wetter than average, which to me means that we may see some better chances for snow, especially in the Northeast. As we get later and later into the month, remember that warmer air, that's also going to help to suppress rainfall. So while amounts are still more likely to be above average in the Northwest and the Northeast for a little while, this drier than average weather I expect is going to take over the southern U.S. and really most of the United States, with the exception of the Northwest and Great Lakes region, may be drier than average. Those two spots, we may still see the active weather pattern continue. And lastly, we can get an idea of where the snow may occur. Those blue colors indicate higher chances, and that follows the temperature pattern pretty closely here. Those higher snowfall chances more likely in the northern U.S., but really just through the first 10 days. After that, I believe it may be kind of hard to see the snow as we all begin to warm up. We can also take it one step further and get in a more detailed look at where that snow is most likely in the first 10 days. And what you're seeing are purple and red colors in those mountains out west. That's indicating a foot of snow or more in many spots. And also some heavier snow in the northeast, with a bit of a gap here in the north central U.S. where it may be just a bit too dry. That's one of our models. That's the European model. The American model also depicting similar story. The northeast, especially the interior, looking at a good chance for snow in the first 10, and also those mountains out west, which I believe may continue to produce throughout the month, not just the first 10 days. Of course, it's important to remember there's always the chance for a snowstorm in March. We've even had some in April that are pretty big, but those chances do wane as temperatures warm, and I wouldn't be too confident in predicting snow beyond those first 10 days, at least with a high degree of accuracy. Now that we've talked snow, it's time to get into severe weather. I wanted to start by showing you climatologically, on average, what those probabilities are for severe storms in March. And it shouldn't come as a huge surprise that our bullseyes in the southeastern U.S., where we begin to see the jet stream become alive, and of course our temperatures begin to warm. So that's of course where the ingredients are going to be richest. And in terms of any severe weather probabilities, you basically see it radiate outwards from around the Mississippi River right about here, going into the later days of the month. So yeah, kind of coming out of the epicenter. Here we are at the end of the month. You begin to see a second maxima start to appear in Texas, Oklahoma, and some more of the more typical tornado alley. So that's how we begin to emerge. That's any severe storm chances. In terms of tornadoes, that bullseye again begins right around the same spot here. And as we go through the month, you're going to see it begin to radiate outwards, and that second maxima starts to emerge. You can see it really clearly here at the end of March in Texas and Oklahoma, and we have this other one that really spans into northern Alabama there. So that is how our severe chances begin to grow outwards, and certainly it's part of the reason that March is so dynamic, because we have the potential for winter storms and severe weather, and that severe weather threat really increases a lot this month. But we can also break down where we're expecting it to be most likely, at least through the first half of March. So here it is, some of the model data suggesting that we will have some activity, at least in the first week, across portions of Texas into Louisiana. We've already seen some activity so far there this year, and the ingredients, it's no shock that they may be available there, but it is something when one of our weather models is already starting to hint at it. So just something to watch. And then as we get into the second and week and really the middle weeks of March, we're looking at that chance to grow perhaps a little bit farther northwards based on some of the latest data. Again, the southeast of course is included in here, but it really rides up the Mississippi River into Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee. So we'll wait and see what ends up materializing. But with a storm track that I've been watching that may take some storms into the northeast like this, like bringing that snow to the interior, as I mentioned, you would also be expecting the potential for severe weather on the southern end here. So I'm not shocked that that is part of our forecast. Beyond the middle weeks of March, it's hard to narrow down exactly where severe weather is most likely, but I would go by climatology like we were talking about. Wouldn't be shocked if we're looking at much of the southeastern U.S., but that said, I'm not expecting a more active than normal March. If anything, I believe it could be a little bit quieter than average, as our northwest wind may be dominating for a good chunk of the month. But certainly will be an area to watch out there in the southeast. And of course, you'll want to check back here for updates, because I'll keep you ahead of every one of these threats as they would begin to emerge, and inevitably will emerge going through the next several weeks and more. I always like to compare my forecasts to other experts out there too, and while I don't always agree with them, this month I actually, it seems like we're on the same page, more or less. You can see the colder than average weather, as I was saying, in the northwestern U.S., which is expected, and the milder weather in the southern U.S. too. And certainly in the first half of the month, it's going to be contained to just this area, but in the second half, that's when these milder temperatures emerge farther northeast. Same thing with the storm track, as we were talking about. Very similar forecast, actually. You have that more active weather in the northwest, and I actually believe there could be another degree of color here. I think it's going to be more active than they're forecasting in the northeast, but certainly that activity in the Great Lakes also being forecasted over at the CPC as well. Meanwhile, the drier than average weather in the south seems possible, could extend even farther out this way, but certainly that is going to be a theme as we go through the month of March. And as we head into April, I would expect an uptick in activity, especially with this pattern beginning to change throughout and setting up for a totally new look by the time we get to the fourth month of the year. If you made it this far, be sure to subscribe so we can keep you up to date with all the upcoming weather events, including severe storms, winter weather, and any other big changes on the way. So with that, we're going to wrap up the video. And remember, by the way, to comment where you are. Let me know what you're seeing. Ask any questions you have in the chat. I love talking weather and science and educating. Whatever you need, I'd like to be a resource for you. So be sure to drop anything down there, and I'll be watching. In the meantime, stay safe, stay prepared, and we'll keep an eye out. Enjoy early spring and stay warm if winter still got a hold.